Hey friends! My name is Desiree, aka Mama Friendly. I do all sorts of videos on my channel, cooking videos, vlogs, hauls, Disney content, a little bit of everything. So if any of that sounds like fun to you, I hope you'll subscribe and join me on my YouTube adventure. I'm doing 25 days of Vlogmas this month, and as part of that, this video is a continuation of my 12 Days of Cookies series. Today I'm going to be making, for the first time, gluten-free molasses cookies. These are going to be gluten-free and dairy-free. They're not vegan because they do have an egg in them, but if you have a favorite egg replacer, like maybe flaxseed, or they actually sell commercial egg replacers, then you could try to make this vegan as well. This recipe is meant to make you 7 dozen teeny tiny mini cookies, or you can make them regular, like bakery sized cookies as well. Obviously you're going to have substantially less than 7 dozen if you do it that way. I'm aiming for mini cookies, but I know that my measurement skills are not the greatest, and I'm going to have a hard time being delicate and probably also kind of being standardized across the board with my sizing. I'm going to try my best though, so I might not come away with 7 dozen cookies, but I'm going to do my darndest to try to get them as small as I possibly can and still trying to make them uniform-ish. We're actually not going to preheat our oven to start because I want to chill my dough before I bake it. So I will be preheating my oven to 375 degrees Fahrenheit while the cookie dough is in the fridge. So to start our dough, we're going to need 3/4 of a cup of vegan or dairy butter. If you don't mind it being, having dairy in it, then you can use regular butter. I'm using this because it's already softened and we do want it to be softened. So 3/4 of a cup of that. 1 cup of sugar. You can use cane sugar, maple sugar, coconut sugar, whatever you'd like. 1 egg should be room temperature. 1/4 cup of unsulfured blackstrap molasses. This is what I've got, so this is what I am using. 2 cups of gluten-free flour, and this is my favorite as always, the 1-to-1 from Bob's Red Mill. 2 teaspoons of baking soda, and then the recipe calls for 1.5 teaspoons of ground cinnamon, 1/2 teaspoon of ground ginger, 1/2 teaspoon of ground cloves. I am going to simplify my life and I am just going to be using 2.5 teaspoons total of pumpkin pie spice, which includes all of the above ingredients. Lastly, we're going to need 1/2 teaspoon of unrefined fine sea salt, which I've got back here. And optionally, if I have enough sugar, because it looks like I might be struggling to make my cup that I need for my dough, I'm going to set aside like 3 tablespoons of sugar so that I could roll the cookie balls in sugar before I bake them. You don't have to do that. You can leave them as they are. But if you want a little bit of added sweetness and added texture, that's something you could try as well. So to start, I've got a bowl here. I've gone ahead and measured about 3/4 of a cup of my softened butter. It so happened that my container was 12 ounces, so I just kind of roughly halved it and put it in my measuring cup just to make sure, and sure enough, it was about the 6 ounces or 3/4 cups that I need, so that was quite simple to do. I'm going to add to my butter my cup of sugar, and hopefully, like I said, I've got enough to make up the cup I need. Oh, I've got enough and then some, so I am going to be able to roll the cookie dough balls around in some sugar if I want. Now, we're going to cream these together. The easiest way to do that is with a hand mixer or a stand mixer if that's what you want to do. You can obviously do this by hand as well. It's not to say that if you don't have an electric mixer of some kind, you can't make this recipe. You absolutely can. I would suggest doing it with a fork because if you do it with a whisk, it's likelier that it's going to clump up on you. And it might take you a little longer, obviously, because you're doing it analog style, but it can be done. So however which way you get it done, cream your butter and sugar together until they're fluffy and well mixed. The well mixed happened almost immediately. The fluffy took a little longer, but we have sort of a frosting consistency now, and I'm very pleased with that. So we're going to move on to the next step, which is to this same bowl, we're going to add in our egg. Next, we're going to need our 1/4 cup of molasses. I always forget how strong this smells because I use it so infrequently. So it always comes as a little bit of a shock to me. I'm going to use the same little sort of paddle situation that I had for my butter to help get all of this out. and our teaspoon of vanilla extract. That looks about right. That's probably more than we needed, but I feel like vanilla extract is to baking as garlic is to cooking. Whatever they tell you to use, just maybe triple it and you might be on the right track. So we're gonna beat this in and then we're gonna continue with our dry ingredients. That's looking very pretty, in case you didn't get a good look earlier. So next I wanna come in with my 2 cups of flour. I've got a 1/2 cup measure here, so I'm gonna do 4 of these. Cooking is math, cooking is science, especially baking. That's why it's one of my favorite things to include in our homeschooling activities. Next we're gonna come in with our pumpkin spice, or you could do the cinnamon, ginger, and cloves separately if that's what you wanna do. I've gone ahead and added our salt, and then the last thing we want to remember to put in here, because I almost forgot, was our 2 teaspoons of baking soda. So now we'll give this one more mix and our dough is ready. Now as you can see, this is a very soft, ribbony kind of dough. It is too thick, I think, to be called a batter, but you really can't shape this right now. So I'm going to cover this up with some saran wrap as close to the actual dough as possible so that it doesn't develop like a skin. And I'm going to put it in the refrigerator for about a 1/2 hour before I roll it up. When it gets closer to that 1/2 hour mark, that's when I'm going to go ahead and crank up my oven to 375 to get it ready. I'm going to line a cookie sheet with parchment paper to get that ready as well. And hopefully within the 1/2 hour, this will be scoopable enough, I guess, to roll into like 1/2-inch balls. Again, I'm going to try to get as close to that as I can, but I'm not expecting it, and I'm not going to like give myself too hard a time if I can't get them that small. We're going to space them out on the cookie sheet about 2 inches apart so they have room to expand. And if you're able to get them as small as they're meant to be, they should be cooked for about 6 minutes. If you're going to make a bakery style cookie, like a regular sized cookie, it could take between 12 and 15. So I'm thinking, honestly, mine might take somewhere in like the 8 to 10 minute window. I'll let you guys know exactly how long mine bake for. But for now, let's get these covered up and into the fridge. Okay, so there was no saving that first batch. It's basically just turned into a giant pancake of sorts. And so this is obviously going to be too big of a measurement. This dough is still very, very sticky, so it's a little harder to control rolling it into any sort of shape. You might have noticed that when I was putting down that first set of dough, I just kind of put them wherever they landed willy-nilly, because my intention was to pick them up and reposition them once I'd gotten them all kind of rolled out. And I very quickly realized that they were way too sticky to actually be picked up again. So I'm making them a lot smaller now. I'm still using the scoop, but I'm only filling it about halfway, just to give me a little bit of guidance on size here. I'm immediately putting them into the sugar to roll them around, because the sugar, at least in theory, is going to make them less tacky. So if I do need to reposition them, I can. I will say, the baked cookie dough and even the raw cookie dough smell incredible. So if I'm able to sort out the bake on these, I know they're going to be good. It's just actually getting the sizing down is a little tricky. But now that I know just how much they're liable to spread, and I'm taking some precautions as far as spacing and sizing, I am confident that this next batch is going to be a lot better. Will it be perfect? Only time will tell. But I am confident that it will be better. I'm only going to do a dozen. So considering how small they are, this is probably going to take you a while to get through all of the batter or dough or whatever we're calling this, because it is a dough, but like I keep mentioning, it's a very, very soft dough. And it also feels like the moment it comes out of the fridge, it starts to get pretty unworkable. So I would definitely suggest putting your bowl back into the refrigerator between batches. You're gonna need to, honestly, because that's what I did, and I'm still having a really hard time as I'm getting close to the end of the dozen here. Far harder time than I had with the first couple cookies. So that looks as good as it's gonna get, honestly. I'm gonna put these in the oven for 9 minutes again and see how it works out. That's more like it. Okay. And they're still a little soft after the 9 minutes. I'm wondering, you know what? I am going to put them in there for maybe 2 or 3 minutes more. I'm risking over baking them, but the first batch, granted, the first batch pretty much spread all together into one giant ultra cookie. But the first batch cooked for, I think, 12 total minutes, and it was still totally raw. So I'd rather overbake a little than underbake right now. Okay, they baked for 11 minutes total. I gave them 10 minutes to cool. I'm hoping I can just peel them off. Yep, peeled them off without any issue. They're going to be a nice, thin, crispy cookie. And they've got that sugar coating on top. Well, they've got sugar all around, actually. So that's the inside. Looks good. Let's give it a taste. That is excellent. Last year I made a gingerbread cake, and it was my very first time ever in life using molasses as an ingredient. I did not grow up eating gingerbread, molasses, like that was not the flavor profile of a typical Cuban Christmas. But I would eat these. I would eat these happily. I would happily feed these to my kids. I think that this is a great holiday cookie. It's got a nice warm flavor to it. It's sweet without being too sweet. The texture is so nice and crisp without being like overdone. Now that we worked the tweaks out, this is definitely a winner. I'd say the biggest trick is honestly just make sure your dough is always as cold as you can manage it, and the smaller the cookie, the better it's going to work out for you in the end. Try not to eat on camera, but I had to go back for a second bite because that was really good. This, I mean, it might be my favorite one so far, guys, honestly. The flavor is unmistakably holiday. And I'm used to like a chewier, doughier cookie, especially when you're used to gluten-free baking. It's hard to get a crisp on something that's gluten-free, but this works. So I really hope that you guys will try this out, and if you do, I hope you'll come back and let me know how you like it. Remember, Vlogmas continues, 12 Days of Cookies continues, there's a lot more coming up on the channel, so I hope you'll subscribe and make sure to come on back for the next installment. Happy holidays!